But it's time now for Reform UK leader Richard Tice. And yesterday, lefty lawyers blocked the transfer of 20 migrants onto the Bibby Stockholm, prompting Tory Deputy Chairman Lee Anderson to tell the Daily Express in his inimitable style if they don't like barges, then they should F off back to France. Reacting, former Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott said it was a new low, even for the Tories. And taking their cue from the Islington Liberal elite, BBC presenter Nick Robinson feigned horror when he interviewed the Justice Secretary Alex Chalk on the Today programme this morning. But actually fair play to the Tory Cabinet Minister, who for once stuck by his erstwhile colleague. Watch.
Do you think telling people to F off back to France, who might have genuine claims to be asylum seekers, who might have escaped war and persecution, do you think that is the reflection of a tolerant, outward-facing nation?
We're a country that believes in fairness and playing by the rules. And those who don't play by the rules, who don't take advantage of those opportunities we provide and try to jump the queue, rightly cause indignation. And I think Lee was expressing that indignation in his own way, but there was nothing unreasonable in principle about what he was saying.
And shortly after, Number 10 confirmed they were backing Lee's comments, saying the Justice Secretary was speaking on behalf of the government. That is the response. So, Richard Tice, do you have any issues with what Lee Anderson had to say?
No, I think credit where credit is due, and I put out a piece on social media immediately supporting Lee. I think he speaks for the majority of sensible, sane people in this country, and actually the Justice Secretary is quite right here, that we are a tolerant, generous and very hospitable nation.
Too tolerant?
Well, no, for genuine refugees. And we've been one of the most welcoming. Over 400,000 people in the last 7 or 8 years. Ukraine, we know what genuine refugees look like. Women and children coming from a war-torn nation, not people coming on boats from a safe, lovely country that many of us go on holiday every year. So look, I think actually Lee has spoken up, and it's a dividing line now, isn't it, between people who say enough is enough. All over the country, week in, week out, I am hearing of more hotels being commandeered, another one close to an area I know very well being commandeered this week, and the numbers are just going up and up, and you're seeing protests emerge, whether it's on the barge, whether it's Llanelli. And I tell you what, I think Westminster and people in the mainstream media like Nick Robinson, they totally and utterly have no idea how angry, how furious people are up and down the country who know what fairness looks like, who knows what welcoming and generosity looks like. We do not like being abused, exploited and manipulated, and that is what is going on at the moment. And the laughable suggestion that had a fear of water. Give me a break. These people have just come over 23 miles of water to get here, for heaven's sake. All of that should have been thrown straight out.
But these are the lawyers. These are the lawyers.
The dodgy lawyers, I suspect. The one who submitted fraudulent claims. It's not just 40 companies, it's all over the place.
Richard, do we need to start properly thinking, though, about how we create a deterrent actually by the way the migrants are housed in the UK? So I look over to New York, a very liberal state, but because of another overwhelming migrant crisis in that city, they are now facing the very real prospect of having to create a tent city in the middle of Central Park where migrants will be housed in tents. Now, at the moment, we are paying over £7 million a day.
At least.
Just for hotels.
Yeah.
And it's probably actually much higher than that. Then you add in the cost of things like the Bibby Stockholm. So do we need to start looking at creating tents?
The mistake in the first place was being way too generous with the accommodation that was offered. It should have been functional, it should have been basic, and people should have been processed like they used to be within a couple of weeks.
Well, what about
which is what happened 15 years ago.
What about tents?
Whether it's sort of temporary accommodation, you know, tented structures. I mean, let's remember that's what the UN itself provides in adjacent countries to war zones. That is the UN standard accommodation. And we could say, well, we can do better than that. But the key thing is process quickly. But the real key thing, and we're the only party that tells it as it is, the only way you stop this huge crisis, which is now a national security threat, is you pick people up safely out of the boats, you put them into border force cutters, and you legally, lawfully take them back to Dunkirk and Calais, and you say to France, we're allowed to do this under the international treaty. Then they'll do a proper deal with us. We know it works because the Australians did it. And until we do that and show some courage and some leadership and, frankly, tell the lawyers where they can shove it, this will go on and on through this year and through next.
And eventually, we're going to run out of accommodation.
Well,
so that's why I think we need to
why do you think the price of the remaining hotel rooms that we can book for events and holidays and conferences and weddings, why do you think those prices have gone up through the roof, adding to the cost of living crisis? Because there's a shortage of rooms, because 600 plus hotels have been commandeered for the asylum seekers, and people have had enough. I'm detecting a rising fury, a rising level of anger and distress, and I don't know where this ends, but we are heading to a bad place, and I'm afraid most of Westminster, the media, and too many people within the sort of political class, they simply don't understand how serious it is on the streets.
And could there be a tidal wave change coming? I mean, I know we've had so many discussions in the past about whether Reform UK can truly break through under the first past the post system. However, a leaked Channel 4 poll tonight is predicting absolute catastrophe for the Conservative Party at the next election.
Excellent.
They are on just over 90 seats. So this would be a landslide like we haven't seen since 1997.
Well, what I can tell you...
Is there a chance for Reform UK?
What I can tell you is that as every week goes by, Dan, more and more people are getting in touch, are coming up to our candidates all over the country, getting in touch with me and saying, you're right, we like what you're saying, we know you stand up for ordinary, decent folk up and down the country who've had enough of this nonsense, had enough of the main two parties. And yeah, I think there is a sea change coming. And when it comes, it's like a tidal wave. You never quite know what it is, what event it is, but I tell you, something is happening.
But are you
something is changing.
Internal polling?
I'm sensing it. I'm hearing it.
Do you have data?
The best data is on the street, and I'm out there as much or more than anybody, frankly.
But you
and
don't
I'm hearing
have
it. I'm seeing
polling showing that you could potentially.
I'm much more trust what I'm hearing and seeing on the streets and comparing that to 3, 6, and 12 months ago. That's what really tells you what's going on. And I tell you, there is a change, there is a fury, and people want something different.
And any Conservative MPs talking about defecting?
I couldn't possibly give you a running commentary, you well know that. But look, there's a lot of very upset, sensible Conservative MPs who feel that actually their party's become a social democrat party, a sort of con-socialist party.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. So, look, there's change in the air, Dan. And look, we predict there'll be an election in October, November next year.
So you've got time.
We've got plenty of time, and candidates are filling in the seats.
OK.
So watch the space.
Reform UK leader Richard Tice. Great to have you in the studio, Richard. Thank you so much.